Okay, we've all been affected by today's bad economy, right? And the biggest argument now is cut spending or increase taxes. With cutting spending, do you want education or do you want public services? And how dare you want both? Next, you are dealt with increasing taxes. If you don't want to cut, you have to increase taxes. So fine, we can tax everybody to death until there's nothing left. The country's leaders today cannot agree on how to economically improve the United States. My name is Stacy Shaw, and I'm here today to offer a little insight. In November of 2010, Prop 19 failed to pass. However, on Prop19.com, it stated over 4.6 million Californian voters voted to legalize, control, and tax cannabis, fully 46.5% of the electorate. That's almost half of Californians that voted to legalize marijuana. I know if marijuana was legalized, the sin tax placed on it would easily be accepted and paid without a question. As a cigarette smoker myself, I pay sin tax every time I buy a pack of cigarettes, and it doesn't bother me a bit. If we were to legalize marijuana, there would be a positive economic impact. Today I will tell you first how legalization would reduce enforcement costs. Next, how marijuana taxes would generate revenue. And lastly, how the new marijuana industry would produce jobs. The legalization of marijuana would reduce enforcement costs. That's not even putting into the system, that's just taking away the stupid, useless money that's like going out for something that's happening anyways. Court and prison system costs related to marijuana offenses would subside. In an article originally published in the Washington Examiner and written by Paul Armentano, said the total number of states and federal drug prisoners suggests that there are now about 33,655 state inmates and 10,785 federal inmates behind bars for marijuana offenses. And goes on to say, multiplying these totals by the United States Department of Justice prison expenditures data reveals that taxpayers are spending more than $1 billion annually to imprison pot offenders. That's definitely money that could go to education, public services, anything else. Also, in the article, The Impact of Marijuana Law Enforcement in an Economic Model of Crime, published in the Journal of Drug Issues in 2007, Shepard and Blackley write that the U.S. law enforcement against the sale and possession of marijuana has been estimated to cost close to $8 billion a year in criminal resources. Now this is imprisonment, court costs, tickets, the whole 9 yards. Next, I'm going to discuss how marijuana taxes would generate revenue. State governments could use the cigarette sin tax as kind of a template to impose their own taxes. In an article in USA Today, published on April 3rd, 2009, titled Biggest U.S. Tax Hike on Tobacco Takes Effect. It shows that states vary widely from their own taxes, North Carolina being the least with 35 cents a pack, and New York being the most expensive with $2.75 state sales tax on every pack of cigarettes, and California's kind of a softie in the middle at 87 cents a pack. More evidence suggests, from an article in Mother Jones written by Kevin Drum in 2009, it says California's Assemblyman Tom Armiano has even introduced a bill that would legalize tax and regulate marijuana. It has gained the endorsement of the head of the state tax collection agency, which formally estimates it could collect $1.3 billion a year from cannabis. That's just California. Now, if that doesn't single-handedly fix everything that's wrong with the state budget, it would be more than the drop in the bucket. Federal government could also use the sin tax as a template for taxing cannabis. In the same article from the USA Today, it says that it was increased from 39 cents a pack federally to $1.01 a pack federally. So, I mean, that could just be tacked on to whatever each state wanted to to tax it themselves. Third point is the new marijuana industry would produce jobs. In an article in the Times called Why Legalizing Marijuana Makes Sense, Joe Klein writes, "It is estimated that pot is the largest cash crop in California, with annual revenues approaching $14 billion. Cultivation and distribution are areas of employment which people would have to directly work with the product. Pruning, picking, feeding the plants, you know, all the kind of things that go on with any kind of agricultural industry. In a report written by the University of California Agricultural Issues, centered in July of 2009, the court imprisons, the information there states that there is almost 390,000 agricultural jobs in California alone. In conclusion, legalizing marijuana would leave an economic impact, positive economic impact, by reducing enforcement costs. Tax gain would generate revenue, and lastly would create jobs.
All right, you kind of give a background on the economic issue, and then that becomes the basis for making the particular claim that you've got. Same sort of thing that we've heard a number of times. Everybody's a little shy about using the phrase, so the proposition is, or the main claim is. It's there, and once again, casual listeners could miss it, but people who are listening carefully, like I am, will clearly hear what's being said. Same thing that I ran into in a couple of other speeches. I mentioned it, I think, for one other person, and I know it happened at least 2 other times here. We're getting a lot of these narrative, expository phrasings on the supporting points. We want declarative sentences. I think your third point actually has a declarative sentence on it, but the first 2 that you're using are how this is going to work and how this is going to come about. And that, again, sounds expository rather than argumentative. So you want to be sharper on that. You're very consistent about citing your evidence. You've got some good examples that you present. There's a little bit of inconsistency on the data about what the revenues are in terms of enforcement of the laws. At one point it's $1 billion. At another point it's $8 billion. I'm not sure that they are automatically contradictory, but I think you need a clear explanation about what, about that inconsistency. Other than that, I thought you did a nice job citing the sources very carefully. You usually deliver your argument clearly and with pretty good confidence. I did think that the estimate that you had at the end of 390,000 jobs in California related to pot growing sounds to me like it's quite ambitious, and I think maybe a breakdown, if there is a breakdown of those job estimates in your research, would probably add a little bit more credibility to it. You've got a good summary and exit at the end of the speech, too. Thank you.